My soon-to-be ex-wife Lisa and I got married in January 2020. I was 22 at the time, and Lisa was 21. We got married in secret. Only our close friends knew. At that time, we were living on campus at our university in Miami, both coming from different counties where our families lived. As soon as we got married, it was a toxic nightmare. For starters, she was secretly texting her ex-boyfriend from high school, Jake. She claimed they were just friends now, but this didn't sit right with me since he was also her first. I'm not the type to snoop through someone's phone because I wanted to trust her. However, she started going out of her way to hide her phone screen from me, and whenever I touched her phone, she would go ballistic. Eventually, I figured out her passcode and checked her messages, but I couldn't find any concrete proof. Fast forward to March 2020, the pandemic hits, and everyone is forced to move back home. We were in a weird position since we still hadn't told our families, so we wore our rings in secret. Everything seemed okay until the first week of April 2020, when she randomly stated she wanted a divorce. Hearing that shattered my heart. I cried and begged her to stay. I tried asking where I went wrong or if I wasn't doing enough for her. She just said she didn't love me anymore and that she wasn't the one for me. For about a week, I tried my best to save our marriage, completely at her mercy, but she's incredibly stubborn. At the end of that rough week, I decided to accept that she didn't want to be with me anymore. It was hard to swallow, but I figured we shouldn't drag this along. I only asked her to return the wedding rings I gave her, but she refused, claiming they were a gift, and she was entitled to keep them. Legally, she may have been right, but I didn't feel she deserved to keep them since we were no longer going to be together. The rings were real, and I was on a payment plan for them for about 3 years, with only 4 months in so far. We argued about this over the phone until I hung up and cried in bed. My mother asked what was going on. I confessed everything to her, and she held me, telling me everything was going to be okay. The next day, we both went to Lisa's home and confronted her mother, telling her the truth. It turned into an argument between our mothers, with Lisa still upstairs refusing to see me but texting me, asking what the hell I was thinking involving our families. It was eventually agreed by our mothers that the rings would be given back to me on another day. A couple of days later, I get a call while at work from Lisa. She was crying, saying her mother was kicking her out because she got married in secret. She claimed she still loved me and was willing to give us another try, agreeing to cut off Jake, and suggested we move in together and live as a married couple. Being the idiot in love at the time, I rushed out of work to meet her, and we immediately started looking for apartments in the area. I found us a cheap apartment due to the pandemic, and the move-in date was within 3 days. When I got home, I told my parents the news. My mother was not happy and told me I was making a mistake and needed to rethink everything. My father was disappointed, but said it was my life, my choice. For the next few days, my friends helped me move, and I barely talked to my parents during that time. It was heartbreaking, especially for my mother, and seeing her upset hurt me too. On the first day in the new apartment, I felt like our marriage was finally moving in the right direction, and I was regaining the happiness I had before she told me she wanted a divorce. However, that happiness didn't last long. A few weeks after moving in, we got invited out for some drinks. When we got back home, I went through her phone and found conversations between her and a different ex, Eric. The messages dated back to around the time she asked for a divorce, and this made my legs crumble. She was passed out on the bed, but I woke her up by splashing water on her and started screaming at her. She was confused, still tipsy, but I was beyond furious and yelled at her for over 2 to 3 hours. At one point, I demanded she leave as she started to come back to her senses. She began swinging at me and chasing me around the apartment, actually punching me a few times and clawing at me. I'm not a violent person at all, so I took the abuse and just locked myself in the room to keep her away from me. She started crying and begging me to forgive her, even getting on her knees and stating she would do anything to make up for it. We just kept arguing and then slowly started talking about the situation through the bedroom door. Eventually, we both calmed down and went to bed, as it was 4 a.m. by then. I didn't sleep though, and when 7 a.m. came around, she woke up with only half the memory of what had happened overnight. I yelled everything back at her again, but this time she was sober enough to understand what was going on and pleaded with me to stay. She cried, stating she had nowhere else to go. In that moment, I hated her very much, feeling like she had stolen me from my family, my friends, and my life. Regarding what I saw in the messages, there was nothing that stated they had done anything physical, at least from what was texted. However, there were conversations filled with sexual tension, such as her calling Eric sexy and Eric suggesting they make a video together, which I still consider cheating. After further arguing, I told her that as long as she promised nothing happened between her and Eric, I better not see her talking to Eric ever again, or I would leave her this time. She pleaded that nothing ever happened. But during the same conversation, I asked if anything had happened between her and Jake. She paused and then said no. That was the moment I knew I needed to investigate this further. My gut told me this was only the beginning of what was to come next, and would turn my world upside down. Update. To add on a little bit more, when we first moved in April 2020, I was working at a call center about an hour away from our apartment from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. She wasn't working due to her job being closed, so I started doing Uber Eats, Postmates, and DoorDash from 8 p.m. to 2 a.m. after work, or on my days off. After the first night we moved in, I got the cold shoulder from her every night. While I was at work, she would text me cute things, repeatedly saying she loved me and couldn't wait to cuddle. But once I got home, she would barely touch or look at me, which led to my discovery about her and Eric. Anyways, now we're in June 2020, weeks after the incident. At this point, I'm keeping my distance from her, maintaining my work routine, while also trying to finish college classes online. She still wasn't working, and whenever I came home, the place was never cleaned unless I did it. Around this time, she also adopted a mini golden doodle. When we moved in, I brought my Malshi along, whom she loved dearly until our doodle came around, giving him the cold shoulder too. For the next few months, it was the same routine. We tried to talk and go out on dates, but it always ended in silence. I tried to break the ice and see if we could work it out, but she never wanted to express herself. Little by little, I felt my love for her fading, as I became numb to her treatment towards me. That was until October 2020, when she finally opened up to me. She apologized for her treatment over the past few months. We felt like we were both ready to leave the past behind and focus on us. It was us against the world. This felt even more powerful when I caught COVID the following month, and she cared for me the way a wife should. She ended up catching it from me once I recovered, and I returned the favor. After that, we started acting more like husband and wife. She finally started getting into my hobbies like video games, anime, art, and photography, even joining me during my late-night deliveries where we would vibe out to music and she would help as well. We discovered new things about each other, went on dates, and honestly, it felt heartwarming being in her presence again. That spark between us was finally coming back, but I still had a secret grudge against her actions, as it was hard to move on from it. All was going good, until a few days before Valentine's Day 2021, when I made another discovery. These past months, I still secretly went through her phone now and then, but never found anything between her and Eric besides what I already knew. However, I decided this time to take it a step further and look at messages between her and her bestie, whom Lisa would constantly send all the gossip to with long messages and screenshots. Going through the messages made my heart sink even more when I found more details about her and Jake. Turns out that Lisa and Jake slept together a few days before she asked me for a divorce, and this was actually the true reason for her asking me for the divorce. As I kept reading, it turns out Lisa and Jake had a conversation sometime in October 2020, I guess for some closure between them, which is why she finally decided to give us a shot. Oddly enough, I wasn't surprised this time. I woke her up from her nap and confronted her about what I just read, surprisingly calm. She started crying and apologizing, but I just stepped out and went for a drive to clear my mind. Many dark thoughts were going through my head, feeling like I had no one to turn to. For the next few days, I avoided her actions as much as possible. We still slept in the same bed, but there was no physical touch between us. On Valentine's Day morning, she nudged me in a cutesy tone, asking what I had planned for her. Keep in mind, I was extremely exhausted from work and my deliveries the whole week, and obviously I was still heartbroken. She started crying, saying that I didn't plan anything for her. Hearing that, I jumped out of bed and began scolding her, telling her how crazy it was to think I would do anything for her, after what I had just discovered. I yelled at her, saying she didn't deserve anything from me and how our marriage was a total disaster. Now you might be wondering why I was still with her. At this point in my life, I honestly didn't have the energy for anything. I was completely blank, a total 180 from the person I used to be. I used to be creative, making drawings and paintings, doing photography and videography, and always looking forward to the next adventure. But I felt hollow, wondering what the point of life was. I know it was stupid, but I felt it was easier to hide it from the world. We were already so deep into the marriage that it felt like there was no going back. If I did, what would I do then? It felt like a dead end, and I blamed myself for relying on her to make me happy, despite her making me the saddest. It didn't mean I forgave her, I just became more numb. So after this discovery, we entered another period of keeping our distance. Around April 2021, she took a trip to Peru with her grandmother, and honestly, I was a little excited to have the place to myself for a change. I told my friends, and they started coming over frequently while she was away, not knowing what I knew. They made me feel like my old self again, doing our old late-night shenanigans and activities like game nights, watching movies, or just hanging out. I loved the happiness I was getting back, even if it was just for a moment. At the same time, the lease on our apartment was up by the end of May 2021, and I had been speaking to my father about my options. That same month, my mother went to Chicago to spend time with family for the rest of the year, and my dad suggested that Lisa and I stay at their home while he followed her to Chicago. I agreed, but Lisa wasn't enthusiastic about it. However, I didn't need her approval. It was either this or paying double the rent for another year. I moved back in with my parents in June 2021. Lisa was still in Peru but was returning in the next few weeks. I finally felt at home again, moving back into my old room and seeing the layout that represented the spirited youth I once had. I enjoyed my last few weeks of freedom, but I knew this happiness wouldn't last forever as Lisa returned from her trip to Peru. Update. So now it's July 2021, and Lisa and I are living at my parents' home. I started a new job in sales and quickly advanced to a supervisor role within 2 to 3 months, which paid well enough to afford my dream car. As for my marriage, we had a steady relationship for the remainder of the year. We had our good and bad moments, but overall I still felt blank. I didn't know what I felt towards Lisa, whether it was anger, sadness, or depression. It just felt like the marriage was existing for no reason. By the start of 2022, there was a bit of reconciliation between us, enough for us to start going out on dates again. We opened up more, but we were still wondering where our marriage stood. Everything seemed okay until May 2022, when my life flashed before my eyes. I invited my friends over to my parents' place to watch a boxing match. I told Lisa about it and mentioned it would only be for a few hours and to expect some yelling as we get passionate about sports. She was okay with it. As the fight went on, we got louder and louder, to the point where she was angrily texting me to keep the noise down. She would come out to grab snacks or use the bathroom, only to slam the door back to the room. After the fight, one of my friend's trucks had a dead battery, so I used my car to jump it. While we were jumping it, the four of us kept talking for about another half hour. While we were talking, Lisa kept demanding through text that I come inside. I texted back that we were finishing up. As I was just about to head inside, Lisa stormed out of the house and headed to her car. I asked if everything was okay, but she had a very serious look on her face and angrily pushed me aside. Before leaving for Chicago, my dad installed outdoor solar lights in the front yard. The way Lisa's car was positioned, her only way out was through a grassy area that had one of these lights. She revved up her car, and before she took off, I tried to stop her from running over the light and asked what was wrong. She paused for about 5 seconds, then stepped hard on the gas and almost ran me over. I jumped out of the way as fast as I could, getting grazed on my knee. She drove off fast, dragging the light beneath her car and scraping the road. I sat on the ground with a shocked look on my face, thinking about how she almost ran me over. My friends helped me up and asked if I was okay. I just looked at them in shock, and they offered their help. I told them to go home while I went back inside, shaken up from the moment. I kept calling Lisa's phone to see why she did what she did. I went inside our room to find her phone on the ground, unlocked. I went through the phone for the first time in months and found there were still secrets to uncover about Lisa. Turns out, Lisa and Jake actually had a continuous affair for months, from March 2020 to October 2020. I finally felt something in my heart and mind to do what needed to be done a long time ago. It was about 2 a.m., and I was still freaking out about the incident. I repeatedly called my sister, who lives down the road, about what just happened, but got no response. Lisa returned and tried to enter the home, but I managed to lock the door with an additional lock. I sneaked out to the back and drove over to my sister's house while hyperventilating as Lisa pursued me. I got to my sister's house and knocked frantically. As Lisa pulled up in the driveway, my sister and her husband finally opened the door. This caused Lisa to back off and drive away. I explained the situation to my sister and cried to her about what just happened, finally opening up about how Lisa had cheated on me in the past. It was a hard pill to swallow, but I was ready to finally let this marriage go. I asked my sister to accompany me back home to make sure Lisa didn't try to hurt me again. When we got there, Lisa was already packing up her belongings. I kept my distance for about 5 minutes, then asked her to give me back the rings and the keys. She already expected this, as she had them in her pocket and handed them to me. She grabbed her suitcase and took our golden doodle with her. My sister and I talked a bit longer, and then she finally went home. That night was a long one for me. I slept at about 6 a.m., only to be woken up around 7 a.m. by knocking on my window from Lisa. She had spent the remainder of the night in her car and asked if I could at least take the golden doodle inside. As much as I wanted to, I ignored her knocking. This went on for about 30 minutes. Later on, I reached out and met up with her to talk about the situation. I finally told her about everything I knew and decided it would be better for us to separate. She cried and begged me to let us work it out. But I was tired of the emotional and physical abuse, the lies, the heartbreaks, everything. As toxic as it sounds, what followed afterward for Lisa was actually satisfying, as I felt it was karma for everything she had put me through. Update. Lisa moved back in with her mother, but not for long as she didn't get along with her stepfather and had too much pride to be living under her mother's roof again. She ended up finding her own place in August 2022, stating that if I ever wanted to make it work out, I was always welcome to move back in with her. My parents came back from Chicago about a week after we separated. A majority of the furniture in our bedroom was hers, as she made me throw out my items like my bed and drawers and replace them with hers because they looked more classy. Besides the bedroom, we had a couch, tables, kitchen appliances, etc., all boxed away in another room in the house. The day she told me she was coming to take her belongings, my father and I left everything out in the driveway, but didn't bother to help them move anything into the truck. She brought along her mother, stepfather, her uncle, and her 2 aunts, who I would say are not all physically strong people. Her grandma was also there to mostly watch, but helped with little things to move. What took my father and me about 30 minutes to move and maneuver out of the house took them 2 to 3 hours to put in a truck. We peeped through the window having a few drinks and laughed about how they were struggling while they were all talking shit about me and my family. I don't know why they included my family, but then again, they're a family who talks shit about everyone and everything. When Lisa moved into her apartment, she was working a new job she got through her field of study, which paid well by the hour, but didn't get enough hours. She had too much pride to work a second job, as she felt like this was below her. Because of this, she struggled to keep up with her rent, electricity, water bill, car payments, insurance, etc. She reached out to me a couple of times asking for money, but I refused to help her, as I felt like her financial problems had nothing to do with me. Lisa would try to gaslight me into giving her money, saying I shouldn't let our golden doodle suffer along with her, to which I replied that she should go ask her lover for money. I was surprised to learn later on that she told her mother the truth, and her mother took my side and stated she would not be giving her money either. The rest of her family still hated me for not wanting to work it out after she cheated, but their opinions didn't matter because none of them are married themselves. Months went by, and we were still legally married. Lisa agreed to go half on the divorce fees but didn't have the money. During these discussions, she admitted she still had hope for us to work it out, as she still had love for me and believed I still loved her back. Call me stupid, but I did love her back, but I just knew I couldn't keep playing this game anymore. Despite everything she's done to me, it was still hard for me to hate her, as this is someone I grew close with in high school, who helped me when I was at my lowest point in life, and made me happier than anyone else ever could. Yet, she still managed to break me and made me feel like I would never be good enough for anyone ever again. We still have each other on social media, and even though she claims to be struggling with money, she always seems to be out every weekend at the clubs. This usually ends up with her drunk texting or calling me, stating she was wrong for how she treated me. Whenever I post on my IG or Snapchat stories about being out late at night, she's usually the first to see my posts, often within a minute. She acknowledges that I look happier without her. As of now, I wouldn't say happy, but I do feel like this is freedom. Since moving out, she's gotten into 2 car accidents just a few months apart. We're no longer on the same insurance together, but she still called me asking if I could financially help her, which I refused and told her she was on her own now. I still had her on my phone plan a few months after, but decided to disconnect her line without letting her know. Once reconnected, she angrily texted me days later about how she lost her number and had to get a new phone because her current phone was still locked with my carrier, and she couldn't call to unlock it since I was the account holder. She called me a dick, and I couldn't help but laugh about it. I have this ex-girlfriend that I ended things with on good terms. We were friends until Lisa and I got married, where she forced me to cut off my friendship with her out of fear that my ex would try to get with me again. We started hanging out again, and when Lisa found out, she swore that I only divorced her to get back with my ex. I had no interest in her after the breakup, only seeing her as a friend at this point, even after Lisa and I separated. From what I heard from a mutual friend, she tried to get back with Eric, who now has a girlfriend and a child. She also tried again with Jake, who now has a girlfriend. Lisa would sometimes reach out to me about how she's still behind on certain bills, barely eats, almost got evicted twice, and can't afford to care for the golden doodle. If I had to guess, she's most likely getting money from her grandmother. We would still text from time to figure out a court date or days when I still had to give her some leftover stuff from home. She would always say she would never find a guy like me, and how much she wishes we could try again, and regrets her actions. Part of this made me feel happy for Karma. The other part felt sad about how everything led up to this moment. Around March 2023, we went to court to finally file for our divorce. While waiting for our turn, she stepped out in the hall to cry her eyes out while I just sat there not knowing what to think. After about 10 minutes, it was finally our turn, and we began signing away. Ever since then, we just talk with a few texts once every 1 to 2 weeks, saying what we have left to say. As for myself, I was promoted to manager a month after we separated. I stayed in this position until November 2022, as I was overworked to the point of getting no sleep. I found a better paying job, one that I continue to work for to this day. During the marriage, I gained weight from overeating to cope with my depression. I've been going back to the gym but need to work on getting a routine. I have big plans with my friends for the summer and myself for later this year. It's now June 2023. I wouldn't say life is perfect, but whenever I'm having a bad day, I think about how Lisa's life has basically fallen apart since we parted ways. It makes me feel like she deserves to feel what I felt for 6+ years. I'm an asshole for thinking this way about her, but at least my life is finally going in the right direction and hopefully continues that way. She can see how happy I can be without her. Update. Anyway, today I'm going to court to meet up with my wife, Lisa. She texted me on Monday, June 26th, to remind me we have court today, June 30th. Yesterday, she gave me one more reminder and also asked for a few things I still had of hers. I asked for some things as well. We still have each other on social media where we still see each other's stories. I don't snoop or anything, I just happen to see it when I'm viewing other stories. I suppose she has a sort of new boyfriend now, or is at least working up to it as she's been posting text messages between her and the same guy. I don't think it's to make me jealous or anything, but knowing her, she likes the attention from other people, just like she did when she and I were becoming a thing. But I don't feel any jealousy or hate towards her. I'm actually relieved she's moving on. The way I see it, someone else is taking over my old problems. They have no idea what type of hell they're getting into. All I can say is good luck. They're going to need it. As for court, I actually feel excited about it. I can continue to move on with my life, and she can finally be out of the picture. She stated that even after the divorce, we can still be friends, mostly because of the golden doodle we have together. Despite me loving that dog, I have to let this all go. After we finalize everything, I will block her on everything, so I don't have to see or hear about her again. As for myself, I haven't tried to meet anyone new. I don't really have it in me to try again. The main thing holding me back is trust issues and my own insecurities. Usually, when I've been in a relationship, it's always been the female who made the first move on me, including Lisa. I should really change that, but for right now, my main focus is work and bills that I'm close to paying off. One of my friends is now training me at the gym. So far, I've lost 10 pounds. My friend group and I are going on our summer trip next week. We have multiple locations to visit within our state. So yeah, life is good so far, and I'll try to update how the court went afterward. Update. On Friday, June 30th, we arrived at the courthouse and waited for our turn with the clerk. After about 3 minutes, we were called in, and there was only one chair for us to sit down. I took the chair for myself, and even though I wasn't looking at her, I could feel Lisa staring at me hard. She said, "Can I at least sit down?" To which I responded, "Then grab a chair." And she just said, "Whatever," and stood up. We explained the reason for divorce, not fighting over anything, just simply separating. A couple of times, the clerk had to walk back and forth or type something into the computer. During those moments, Lisa would make little remarks like she couldn't wait to get rid of me, that it was me who trapped her into a marriage, and that I never satisfied her, etc. Not to sound cocky, but I know she was saying most of that stuff to mask what she really felt. I know this because she followed up with saying she hopes I have fun with my ex, who is still a friend. Like I said before, I have no interest in her, but Lisa swears I'm in love with her. While we kept going back and forth, the clerk was trying so hard not to laugh. We paid the fee, and now we just have one more court date in 1 to 2 months. It was raining when we walked out, so we still discussed a few things. The main thing she asked was if I could watch our golden doodle in August while she goes on a trip out of the country. I said it wasn't possible for me, and she followed up by calling me a deadbeat dog dad and saying I would never see him again before she left. Here's the kicker. Yesterday, Lisa asked if I could watch the golden doodle for today, but I couldn't because I work today, even though it's the 4th of July. Also, today is her birthday. She won't be getting a happy birthday from me, though. Her family does not celebrate birthdays, especially her mother and stepfather, because they're both JWs. Her only real option is her best friend, who's most likely going to do something with her boyfriend rather than Lisa. So yeah, now I'm at work waiting for 2 more days before vacation. Nothing really different is going on from the last update. Update. Yesterday, July 18th, we had a Zoom conference call with the judge to finalize our divorce. Initially, it was supposed to be 1-2 months from now, but our date came quicker than we thought. It was very quick, no more than 1-2 minutes. We raised our right hands and answered the questions they asked related to why we're divorcing. The judge asked a question to Lisa that made her hesitate. The judge asked something like, "Can you confirm if this marriage is unable to be resolved?" And she gave the biggest blank stare at the camera before finally saying, "Yes." After that, he stated we would receive an email either the same day or the next, finalizing our divorce, and ended our Zoom call. I don't think it has hit me yet that I'm now legally single since I felt like this for over a year now. Nothing about my life feels different, other than the fact I don't have to deal with Lisa anymore. I have no reason to speak to her now, and I will never contact her again. Update. Technically speaking, Lisa and I knew each other since elementary school, since we went to the same school. The same with middle school, we even had classes together, but we never talked. My freshman and sophomore year, I went to 2 different schools due to moving homes before staying at my 3rd and final high school for 11th and 12th, where Lisa went. Funny thing is that before getting with Lisa, I actually got together with her friend Valerie. Valerie and I had a sort of relationship during our sophomore year before I went to her school, but it never officially happened. During our senior year, we tried to work it out again, but nothing happened. So I felt kinda bad, and Lisa just happened to be there to comfort me. Lisa and Valerie stopped being friends around the same time, but for reasons unrelated to me. Lisa and I got close mostly due to us having a class together. She started DMing me on Instagram, which eventually led to texting and then late-night phone calls. During lunch on the last day of school, Lisa and I went behind the portable classes in our school where almost no one could see us. We talked for a bit, but eventually she just grabbed my dick out of nowhere. We did hear people getting near, so we stopped and went to our own classes. We laughed about what just happened but moved on. A few weeks later, we had a graduation rehearsal, and when it was over, I gave Lisa a ride home. While driving, I jokingly said she needed to give me cash, gas, or ass for the ride. She dared me to pull over, and once I did, I saw how serious she was when she put her hair in a ponytail. So yeah, we fucked in my car. The next day, I walked on stage with a huge hickey on my neck. Afterward, Lisa and I didn't know what to think of each other as she left for Peru for the rest of the summer. While there, she would still tease me with photos and videos. When she got back, we started hanging out again and quickly began being friends with benefits. We always said we didn't have feelings for each other and just wanted to have fun. The way we had our schedules to meet up was too good. Besides our jobs and colleges, her family would be away from home at a very specific time every week due to owning a business. So from Wednesday through Sunday, between 9 a.m. to 7 p.m., we had an open house, and we usually started fucking from 9:10 a.m. until I needed to leave, usually before 6:30 p.m. to play it safe from her family. On the other days, I would sometimes pick her up, and we'd just do it in my car. I would say we were fucking at least 5 times a week. This went on for a whole year until we finally decided to become a couple, seeing how we basically acted like one already. The first few months were good, but being official changed her. This started her hatred towards me hanging with my friends or talking to females. To counteract this, I would just see her the same day or next and give her the goods. This always changed her mood, and she would let me do whatever I wanted afterward. This became a cycle for the next year or so, and it was one I became adjusted to since I always knew the outcome. As a couple, we went on dates, but seeing how we were friends with benefits before, we seemed too sexual with each other, wherever we went. It was the norm for us, being horny young adults anywhere. But of course, we had our serious moments where there were pregnancy scares, talks about starting a family, and someday getting married. We know how that turned out. So before our toxic marriage, we were pretty much each other's halves. We knew everything about each other, pushed each other to further our goals, felt the love we had for each other during our lovemaking, and looked very much like a perfect couple according to everyone we knew. So yeah, that's why it was hard to let Lisa go, even after finding out she cheated. A part of me didn't want to believe it was true, because I thought there was no way this person would stoop so low after everything we'd been through. But people change, and anyone who's had a relationship as long as I had would understand. To clarify for those confused, my 6+ year relationship started when we were both 18 as friends with benefits, got married at 22, and we separated when we were 24. We're 25 now and have gone our separate ways after finalizing our divorce. Only good news I have now is a promotion I'm getting soon. By the way, that summer trip was fun. Really needed it as a life booster.